Monday's meeting of the United Nations, well, it devolved in this meeting. There was a discussion on Ukraine and involved the Ukrainian ambassador basically telling his Russian counterpart to go get some mental health care.
Posted today this text. Foreign Minister Lavrov. The goal of Russia's special military operation is to stop any war that could take place on Ukrainian territory or that could start from there. Russian embassy in London, retweeted by the Russian Foreign Ministry. Let me remind the Russian diplomats that in London, in case of need for mental help, you can dial NHS line 111. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that happened. Fun. Apparently, the United Nations has become a place where ambassadors can basically shitpost in real time and dunk on each other. That's fun. But look, the Ukrainian ambassador is correct in pointing out how ridiculous the Russian statement is. So wait a minute. So the Russians are saying, okay, look, we invaded Ukraine. Well, we didn't actually invade Ukraine. No, we're on a peacekeeping mission. Yes, that's what we're there to just keep the peace. With tanks and artillery and soldiers and all that stuff. Yeah, we're invading for peace. Well, you can't do that. That's not a thing. You can invade for peace. Invading for peace is like fucking for abstinence. It doesn't work. That's not what happens. That's not the reality of the situation. And so, look, again, there's a lot of different Russian arguments that are going on here. For example, they're protecting people in Donbass, Donetsk, and Luhansk from the Ukrainian bombing, right? That's been going on. Oh, 2014, yeah, it's so much bombing. Okay, but if you're going to protect those areas, say you are actually in a so-called peacekeeping mission to protect citizens or Russian-speaking or Russian-aligned citizens in those areas, then why are you everywhere else in Ukraine? Again, there's a 40-mile convoy of tanks and artillery that are stuck outside of Kiev. So, and of course you have the shelling in Mariupol, Kharkiv, other places all over. So why are they all over there if the whole supposed mission was peacekeeping in the eastern regions? That doesn't make any sense. Again, this is not at all limited to the eastern borders of Russia. And so the whole thing doesn't make any sense. But that's why it goes to where some of the arguments that are being floated here as like, oh, you don't understand, this needs to be a buffer between the aggressiveness of the West. And again, I've pointed out how, okay, NATO expansion, not good. We shouldn't be, NATO should not be expanding. There was a little bit of a gentleman's agreement way back when, I think back in the 90s. I covered all that stuff. And I can understand the rational Russian position of, hey, there's a military alliance that is not exactly friendly towards me or my country's interests, and it seems to be expanding eastward, and so we're a little concerned about that. That said, remember, Ukraine, the President Zelensky is like, look, in the talks with Russia, we don't want to, okay, we're going to decide not to join in the NATO alliance, and so you don't have to worry about that. But apparently, that wasn't the actual issue here, because you can go back and you can see video of, Putin talking about how it was, just a terrible idea to actually give, to give places like Crimea back to Ukraine when it should have been part of Russia, and so all of this stuff, right? And so it makes me consider, it makes me believe that this entire thing was planned from the get-go, where of course Russia wants to come in and do regime change, basically remove Zelensky and put in their own person that's going to be more Russia friendly. And so that's what's going on. Now, of course, propaganda, and by the way, all sides use propaganda. There's propaganda, there's pro-Ukrainian propaganda. There's pro-Russian propaganda, there's pro-West propaganda. And so understand that there's propaganda from all different sides here. And that's kind of what happens in a conflict. And so, I mean, there are, points of like where there's Ukrainian propaganda that is supposed to elicit, feelings of national pride and all that stuff in order to help resist the Russian invasion. And of course, there's Russian propaganda. This is an example of that. What Russia is doing, what Russia is talking about being a peacekeeping mission, that is Russian propaganda. That's not at all true, and it's an attempt to gaslight everybody. Apparently gaslighting his own troops. And so, no, I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, the troops, from what I've heard, the troops were told, oh, this is a training exercise, it's not an invasion. Okay, it kind of is, but it's actually more of a peacekeeping mission. But don't worry, we're peacekeeping, and you will be greeted there as liberators. Where have we heard that one before? Weird. But at the same time, look, maybe if they had stayed in the areas where, in the East where people were identified more with Russia, okay, you could make a case, but the rest of the country has their own culture and identity that happens to be closer to the West and wants to be closer to the West. And so that's something that apparently Vladimir Putin is not happy about, which is why this is happening now. And so one person asked, why shouldn't NATO be expanding? Why shouldn't the rest of us be able to protect ourselves? It's more about trying to avoid a situation where, again, you have other countries like Russia that feel threatened and then would want to lash out. We would actually like to reduce tensions with other countries and Russia. And basically the whole point of NATO was to be against the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union no longer exists. And so understand that what NATO is a military alliance. Now, if you're talking about Ukraine and countries joining the European Union, I don't have any problem with that. I think that's totally fine. But Putin did not agree. Putin thinks that joining the European Union is even too much of an affront. And so, no, I think, I think that there is some valid concern there, but not enough. Certainly nothing to justify this ridiculous invasion.